All right, let's keep going. So the goals for the session, by the end of this, we want everybody to have the opportunity to submit their course requests. That's the primary idea here. But additionally, we want to understand the implications of taking summer school classes. And we want to have a sense of the school day schedule for next year. And we want everyone to know whether or not your son ought to take a placement test. So those are the main ideas that we are looking for getting out of things today. When you have questions, you have the opportunity to ask questions of different people in the chat. Since I'm kind of running all of this, don't send any questions to me. When later on, when we're talking about our placement tests, Kate Toussaint is our Modern and Classical Languages chair. If you have questions about language, then send your email to Kate. If you have questions about math, send your email to Tracy Lyons, who is our chair of math. If you have questions about summer school or any of the freshman transitions, Tim Kurt is who you ought to send your chat to. And if you have logistical questions, you can send your chat to Trisha Schuler. So those should be the various choices that you can see there. Periodically, I will stop and ask all of those people to jump onto the screen, and any questions that they're getting that seem to be a little bit more common or may apply to lots of different people. They'll ask those questions, and then I'll answer those for the whole group. All right, so here we go. Tim Kurt is first going to also talk about our Learning Center notes. So, Tim, if you want to unmute yourself and start talking a little bit about the Learning Center program.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Foy. A couple things. I wear those three hats for this meeting. I wear the freshman transition hat, the summer school principal hat, and for this part, the Learning Center hat. I just want to reiterate, I said this in the meeting in person last time. Y'all probably repeated a few other times. I just want to remind everyone that in the enrollment checklist, there is the Learning Center student support form. And even if you or your son had submitted any documentation during the admissions process for extended time on the HSPT, for example, that doesn't automatically transfer over to access for Learning Center supports or access to SLUH's two stated accommodations, extended time, and preferential seating. The reason we do that is lots of families sometimes wanted extended time on the HSBT, but don't want it for accommodations and when they start SLUH. I would like to address that point here, which is you'll only get access to the accommodations and have a written learning profile if you submit that form and then submit any requiring supporting documentation that Mrs. Tippett asks. Please, if you have a son who has a diagnosis of any learning difference or any issues, please err on the side of being overly communicative about filling in that form and getting the process started. No boy is required to access services, but in order to facilitate support when it's needed, it just really helps to have all of that information out in the front. I would recommend your sons are undergoing the biggest academic transition of their academic career so far, and I'd rather just have all the paperwork in place. And then if he doesn't need it, that's fine. But if he does, it's all in place. We have close to 180 students, I think, out of our student body with some type of diagnosis and some type of accommodation recommendation. And it works really well to have that. If you wait until junior year, sometimes it's too late for standardized tests, especially for ACT and AP. So go ahead and get that all started and fill that out. And if you have any questions, you can email me or Mrs. Tippett, but that form is in your enrollment checklist. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so let's move on to our next screen here. So I want to talk a few minutes about the keys to success at SLUH. So at this point, I'm speaking mostly to the students, but parents, I want you guys to hear this as well, because it's important that it's important that these are the kinds of questions that you're asking if things get a little sideways. So what we're trying to do is create a learning community between your son, that between you, the student, teachers, and your classmates. What we want is for our courses to be interesting. We want you to invest in your own learning, and we want you to believe that you are the one who is in control of what you like, what you enjoy. Some students have a tendency to kind of talk themselves out of things and say, well, in the past, I haven't been so good at this subject or that subject, and then think that they're sort of stuck. But when you enter this new place, it's a great time to reinvent. It's a great time to be curious and to always believe that you can be a terrific student. And we will support you the whole time. Everybody at some point in their life hits some sort of roadblock where the system that they have used in the past is no longer good enough. Sometimes it happens early in freshman year, sometimes sophomore year or junior year, but it happens to everybody eventually. And what we want is for you to be able to really be ready to ask those questions and seek the support that you need. So right when you get in, start off with those strong habits. Study more than you think you need to. Make sure that your homework is done in plenty of time to get good sleep. Start off with those habits early on because it's much easier to maintain them than to try to put them in place later on. What we always say is to worry about learning first. When you're worried about learning and experiencing all these cool opportunities that your teachers are putting in front of you, then grades that you're happy with will follow. Sometimes, though, if you go in the other order and you only concentrate on grading, the learning doesn't, I'm sorry, only concentrate on the grades, sometimes the learning doesn't follow quite as well. So that's just something that we really want everyone to be thinking about. Parents, if your son does get frustrated or struggles, then try real hard to ask those questions. Have you sought out help from friends? Have you met with your teacher? How are you using your time before you start just trying harder and trying to do the same thing a little bit more? So, school counselors are always very helpful with that. We'll talk about all those relationships both in SLU 101 as well as some of our beginning of the year things and our beginning of the summer items as well. So, just some ideas to start things off. I want to talk a little bit about how we understand grades and grading at St. Louis U High. So, here you see the letter grades that are available, but what's more important are the grade descriptors. So, what we were trying to do here is get a narrative that describes what we mean with mastery and proficiency, and then encourage students to hit those targets. Ultimately, after St. Louis U High, folks are going to go on to college, so we transfer those narratives to letter grades, which becomes a GPA. And that is useful mostly for reporting externally to colleges. It allows the college counselors to put everybody into the best light possible. We want to make sure that all of you guys are set up to be successful in your next steps. So, by encouraging this authentic engagement and learning and risk taking rather than just accumulating as many points as possible, that's what's going to make you the interesting person with a cool story to tell. Some of you with older sons will notice that there's not an A plus letter grade available. The idea here is, again, to concentrate on learning and allow for risk taking rather than just rewarding perfection. All the students will go through a detailed description of what all of this means at the beginning of SLU 101. All right, next we're going to talk a little bit about placement tests. So the specifics of it. So we offer placement tests in language and math. There are two opportunities for students to take those. One is Saturday, April 18th, and the other is Wednesday, April 22nd. You'll meet in the Commons on April 18th, and we'll start with our modern and classical languages in the morning. Mathematics will then start at 10. If a student finishes the language exam quickly, they can immediately start math. All of that just kind of gets communicated day of. The testing on Wednesday, April 22nd starts at 3:30. We encourage you to get there pretty much right around 3:30. If you get there much earlier, then you'll be trying to walk in while all the students are trying to walk out. And it just gets pretty congested and it can be hard to find where you're supposed to go. So we'll have directions at the main entrance by the Ignatius statue for everybody there. I believe Ms. Schuler just shared the registration link in the chat. So it's also in your admissions account for the enrollment checklist. At this point, what I'd like to do is invite Ms. Kate Toussaint to discuss the language options and how placement tests work for language. Kate, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So glad that you're here. We can't wait to meet your students. I'm Kate Toussaint. I'm the chair of the Modern and Classical Language Department. We offer 6 languages to our incoming freshmen. We offer 5 modern and 1 classical, as you can see there. Our modern languages are Arabic, Chinese, French, Russian, and Spanish, and our classical language is Latin. And we offer all 4 years in each language. We love all of our language programs. They're excellent. And as you're making your choices tonight, please know that 85% or more of our students get their first choice of language. And this is great. We're very proud of that. But that does, of course, mean that 15% of students don't get their first choice. So I want you to think about your second choices. I want you to think about these choices. Um, and lead with courage. So I know there's a tendency to be disappointed if you don't get your first choice. And I really want to challenge you to think about this as an opportunity. An important component of Jesuit education is being open to growth. And this may be your first opportunity to do so while at SLU. And of course, I'm biased being the chair of the language department, but I know that all of our students have incredible experiences in their language classes, no matter the course. And what's exciting, I think, about this is one choice that can really fundamentally alter their life. So if they choose Arabic, they get to spend the summer in Morocco, or they get to study Russian and they are working with Ukrainian refugees in Poland. Perhaps Spanish, which is my language, and they come with me to Pamplona and they get to see where St. Ignatius was born. So a final note on this choice. As I mentioned just a moment ago, I really want you to lead with passion and energy and not fear. So when you think about the language that we offer, I want you to see where you feel excitement, see where you feel butterflies, and I want you to follow that. Sometimes parents get nervous about maybe their child is wanting one particular language and they're saying, "Oh, I don't know about this. I really want you to do, X language." But let them lead with their excitement. And the number one question I get, it concerns the placement test. So as Dr. Foy just said, we offer placement test on Saturday, April 18th, and I forget the other date, but you have it in the link. That's right. Thank you. Wednesday, April 22nd. We offer language placement test for all 6 of our languages. And the question, of course, that I get is if your child should take the language placement test. And the answer is maybe. So many schools are so well intentioned with their language offerings, and we really appreciate their efforts. However, most language classes at middle school level tend to emphasize vocabulary list or the cultural component of the language, with a small focus on language skills like reading and speaking. And so, if your child went to a school with a focus on vocab and culture and less on proficiency, there's really no need for them to take the placement test. Again, we really appreciate the exposure, but it doesn't typically provide the sufficient foundation to place into a higher level language class at SLU. It's absolutely okay. We want our language learners to feel challenged, but also positioned to thrive and succeed. So if your child went to a school with a more robust curriculum, we do recommend taking the placement test. And I'm happy to answer questions if you are questioning the language program and just want more information. I'm happy to answer any questions. Um, This happened last year for the first time, but we had a number of students that came to take a language placement test with zero exposure to any language. And so I just want to let you all know it's not required. You do not have to sign up for a language placement test if your child has had no exposure to a language. And then my final note is that if you speak a language other than English at home, we recommend you take a new language at SLU. We are really blessed to offer so many languages, and we'd love you to have that experience. And then, of course, your junior and senior year, you can take the upper level language courses in the language you speak at home. So we really hope you take advantage of this incredible opportunity. Again, we're very proud of the languages we offer and are excited to see what you all where you go with your languages. Any questions, maybe, or should I just pass it to back to you, Dr. Foy?
Yeah, if you have questions for Kate, you can direct chat to her, and then she can kind of answer back to you. Um, Tracy Lyons is now going to take an opportunity to talk to you about math placement. So, Tracy, why don't you take it away and talk about math?
Great. Thank you so much. My name is Tracy Lyons, and I am the chair of the math department here at SLU. So each year, looking at our incoming freshman class, about 70% of those freshmen do take either our Algebra 1 course or our accelerated Algebra 1 course. So I just say that so that you know that a student is not at a disadvantage or even in the minority of their class if they come in and take Algebra 1 next year. Students that take Algebra 1 freshman year can still take our BC Calculus course their senior year, and there will also be other AP and non-AP math courses available to them. But we do give an algebra placement test in April, the same time as this language placement test. Students who pass that test are then placed in freshman geometry for their ninth grade math class. Those students follow an accelerated path through their 4 years here at SLU that could land them in that BC Calculus course by junior year, and then having Calc 3 and AP Statistics being options for their senior year. Students who show some algebra knowledge as well as some areas for growth on that placement test are placed in an accelerated Algebra 1 course. This course is an Algebra 1 course that moves at a slightly faster pace and with more depth than our regular Algebra 1 courses to meet those students at something that is appropriately challenging for them. The placement test in April is the only way to place out of Algebra 1. So if your student has seen some or a lot of algebra by 8th grade, we recommend that they take the placement test. We will then place them in the math class that best fits the ability and knowledge that they show on the test. There are a handful of incoming freshmen each year who have taken a high school level geometry course already or are maybe currently enrolled in such a course right now. We can and have given a geometry placement test to those students once we have completed the algebra placements. Once those have been finalized, we usually can get around to a geometry placement test like the first week of summer school. Historically, not everyone that has completed a full year of high school geometry somewhere else has passed that test. So I just say that ahead of time so you know. Probably the main reason for that is an emphasis on proofwriting that we find in our curriculum that is maybe not quite as stressed in Missouri state geometry standards. Thank you so much. I will turn it back to Dr. Foy. There you go.
Okay. Thank you very much. So let's continue. It doesn't seem like we have a lot of questions coming in that haven't been able to be answered so far, just by the individuals. So we'll kind of keep on going. So the next thing that I want you to try, that I want to make sure everybody understands, is some of our course options. And we start off by thinking about our fine art options. So there are a few different choices, and students will be asked when they submit their requests to indicate a first choice, a second choice in fine arts. So the different choices are the Survey of Visual Arts, which has three components. The first is drawing and design, the second is ceramics, and the third is printmaking. So in drawing and design, they'll learn the basic ideas of line and structure and shadow. Then they move on to ceramics, where they'll make some kind of 3D models. and eventually be prepared to take later classes in ceramics with wheels and all that sort of stuff. They then move on to printmaking, where they learn how to make multiple copies of the same sorts of things, again, preparing them for upper level printmaking courses. There's a lot of self-critique and other critique from other students as well, which is kind of a cool thing that students are able to do. The second kind of way that students can make their way through the fine arts at St. Louis U High is through the survey of performing arts. So the similar to visual arts, survey of performing arts breaks into three sections: chorus, dance, and theater. So, in the choral performances, students will learn the basics of singing, again, preparing them for our upper level courses and the various choirs that St. Louis U High has. This is also important for students who are hoping to become involved with our musical theater program. Our dance program is similar. A third of the time is spent learning basic rhythms and how to count music and all that sort of stuff. Again, with a focus on health and flexibility, another popular place for our students to be in when they plan to be involved with our theater program. Our acting class, as well, is an opportunity for students to learn the basics of acting, to play some improv games, to do some scenes, and to figure out what it means to start spending time on stage. Freshman Band and Orchestra is a large program. It's a really exciting thing that we have. It is, however, pretty complicated. So, what we do at the end is our band director, Mr. Jeff Pottinger, will join us, and any students and their parents who have questions about band and orchestra will go into a separate breakout room where you can hear directly from Mr. Pottinger and he can kind of talk through how all of this works. So that'll be an opportunity at the end for everybody to jump over to. If your student is not interested in the band, then you'll just kind of move straight on and you won't have to attend that session. Next, what I want to do is talk about our summer school program and the implications of summer school, depending on what you choose to do. So basically, what you see here is an example right in the middle. These two diagrams are an example of a student who does not take summer school on the left and a student who does take summer school on the right. So everybody has theology, English, math, science, and one of our six foreign languages. Additionally, they will have one semester of social studies, a human geography class, and one semester of fine arts. I'll talk again about band in just a moment. In that seventh slot, in the first semester, everybody takes a one semester course called SLUH 101, which is a really exciting way to to learn all about what it means to be at SLUH, to build a lot of successful study habits and get exposure to our whole curriculum. Then, sometime in the second semester, they will take health and computer programming. Now, these three courses that are listed in orange are the three most popular courses for students to take over the summer. When students take those three courses, this seventh slot is then open during the school year. They'll take the same list of six courses up here, and then they'll have a free period once per cycle. Summer school is not required, but about 90-95% of our incoming freshmen choose to participate. It is a great way to get to know a bunch of new friends. It's a good way to learn your way around the building. And our idea here is to basically remove so many of those concerns about fitting in and knowing your way around that usually plague the first couple of weeks of school. Rather, by getting all of those jitters out during the summer, they'll know who they're going to eat lunch with. They'll know how to work the lock on their locker. They'll just be familiar. It's almost like being a second semester freshman on the first day of school. And we have found that this really, really helps students be successful early in their freshman year. Now, some of you might have received an email from me again last Tuesday recommending that your son take math prep. These are students who we think will be most successful if they do a little bit more math to catch up and bridge some gaps before they head into Algebra 1 as freshmen. If you take math prep, then we will substitute computer programming, and then you'll have 3/4 of a study hall because you'll still take computer programming during the school year since you're taking math prep in the summer. All right. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, I really want to take summer school. I want to have that experience and I want to meet a bunch of new people, but I'm not necessarily sure that I need a full free period all year. So there's two groups that typically fall in this area. These are either our band students. So band is a full year commitment each year. So our band students will take at least SLU 101, and then take their full year of band and then have one semester of a free period, typically. If they only take SLU 101, then they would have health and computer programming and no free period. But it opens up by trading SLU 101 for band. It allows them to take that full year of band here. Additionally, students who are not in the band but are not interested in having a free period can petition to take extra courses, either in fine arts or in computer science. Um, for the most part, students don't take two. There have been some exceptions here and there, but for the most part, that students will take one extra class. These are usually our students that have, a lot of experience in visual or performing arts, or they sort of already know that they're, really into computer science and things like that. So they'll add in maybe C++, or maybe they'll add in drawing one or something like that. It is particularly difficult for the schedule to actually work out to get to those classes. So that's why we typically have students take one, but we can certainly work and answer questions when those come up. Do we have any questions, Mr. Kurt, Mrs. Schuler? Any questions that I can help answer?
Um, I don't have a direct question. Ms. Schuler may have one, but I would like to it's this time where I could talk a little bit about summer school attendance policy reminders. Uh, it's the first thing you'll see when you click summer school information on the incoming freshman FAQ to read the policy. But I'll give you a shortened version of it, which is students will get one discretionary absence. They would be expected, they'll find out who their summer teachers are at the start of summer school. So they don't need to do anything before that. But then we would expect them to communicate with their teachers in advance about what day they will miss. It is possible with a conversation with me as summer school principal, it could be done through email that one extra day may be allotted, but in no circumstances will more than that second day be approved because we are condensing 22 or an entire semester worth of classes into those 22 class days, which are 22 minus the 2 days off around July 4th and the June 19th holiday. All that information is on our incoming freshman FAQ question. Like Dr. Foy said, summer school is not required. Many will attend, but there is an option to take the SLU 101 during the fall.
All right. So here what you can see is our information about summer school. So SLU 101 is a half credit. So and half credits cost $500. A quarter credit, which is what health, computer programming, and math are, those are $250. So prep math does not award credit or a grade. It's just to get everybody going and make sure that everybody will be successful when they arrive. Our dates for summer school are June 8th to July 10th. And you can see there that basically the school day starts at 9 and ends at 2:30. The vast, vast, vast majority of students come for the whole day. Of that 95%, there's usually a handful who only come in the morning or only come in the afternoon because usually it's sports practice conflicts that cause students to only take one or the other session. But the whole class will be free for the same lunch period. which kind of gives another opportunity for, some time to recreate and get to know people. So mark down those dates. Like Mr. Kurtz said, because it's such a short period of time, it's very important that students are present, missing no more than 1 or 2 days. Summer tuition is added to our regular tuition. So the first bill usually goes out around June 1st, and you'll set up your payment through Facts, which is all communicated through, the kind of our usual process. Summer school does not conflict with any St. Louis U High athletic camps. So if you don't have that information yet, just know that none of the athletic camps will conflict in any way. We know that summer school is a terrific opportunity, and there's always some people who have that kind of once in a lifetime trip to Europe for grandma and grandpa's 80th birthday. And some of you guys are high level athletes who travel all over the place. And while summer school is a terrific thing, students with other great opportunities might not be able to participate, but that's okay. You don't need to take summer school in order to have a robust and well-rounded experience. So here is what you'll see as a typical day. So the quarter classes, computer programming and health, meet for an hour and 15 minutes between 9 and 10:15. 10:15 to 11 is health. Then we have our 30 minutes for lunch, and then 2.5 hours for SLU 101, which again is a half credit. So it's a full semester done. Obviously, it can flip over, and some students, half the students about, will take SLU 101 in the morning and then health and computer in the afternoon. This is important, parents, for carpool. It doesn't matter what your students, what order or who their teacher is or anything like that. All you got to do is get them here by 9, pick them up at 2:30, and everything will be all squared away. Next, students, you guys saw this, you experienced it when you came in for a shadow day, but I want to talk a little bit about the schedule. And this is important, as we talk about the value of a free period at St. Louis U High. So across the top, you see these letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We will refer to each class as one of those letters. So your freshman year, biology and theology 1 and English 1 and your language, they'll be assigned to one of those 7 letters. And then you'll see on this particular week, these 7 letters just sort of snake through the day. So the first Monday is a 5-period day. A, B, C, D, E all meet, and then F picks up the next morning. We have advisory on Tuesdays. That's a programming period where they learn about all sorts of cool formational activities that we want students to be able to learn about. But those activities don't necessarily fit into English or math or science class. So these are things like our sustainability initiatives or DEI programming or, various other, how to deal with screens and mental health concerns and all that sort of stuff. So it's a lot of important Jesuit formational ideas that help students understand. Additionally, those advisories are about 20, 25, 4 students who will remain together all 4 years. So it becomes kind of like a little group that students are attached to the whole time. On Thursdays, we have another time that kind of rotates between late starts for faculty time, but sometimes it will also be here, and that's where we'll do all school masses and all school assemblies and things like that. What I do also want to pay or call to mind is the activity period and studium. So every day, whether you have a free period or not, every student has 50 minutes of unscheduled time. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, that studium is reserved for academic pursuits. So meeting with a teacher for extra help, making up a test or quiz that you missed when you were absent, maybe working in a study group with other students, or just doing homework. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have what's called activity period. During activity period, all of those same academic pursuits are encouraged, but we also have club meetings that take place there. So the teachers will be available to help students unless those teachers are moderating a club. We have about 70 clubs and activities that meet regularly. Some are social, some are academic, some are really silly, some are really serious. It just is another way for students to experience leadership opportunities and to find their way at St. Louis U High. If students have a free period, then what that means is one of these letters, we'll call it letter A, would be an unscheduled time during the day. So you'll notice that in this week, A happens first thing on Monday, then toward the end of the day on Tuesday. A does not meet at all on Wednesday because of how this snake rotates through. And then we have A here and A here. So this week, because A started early on Monday, there'd be four. But if it happened to be G, notice G only meets 3 times this week. So every class that's 60 minutes long will meet either 3 or 4 times during a 5-period week. And that's the basics of how your students will sort of roll through the week. It can seem a little crazy and a little difficult, but I promise students will understand it very, very quickly. It's not nearly as complicated once you start to live into it as it might seem. All right, so at this point, we're now going to actually register for classes. So, Ms. Schuler, if you would please pop that URL into the chat, powerschool.slu.org. And parents, you now have the opportunity to log in and you can start to to get things going. While you're doing that, we'll just tell you that course requests are due Friday, March 6th at 5 p.m. Requests submitted prior to March 6th are not first come, first served. So there's no race to get this in. As long as you have your request submitted by March 6th at 5, everything is on an even keel. If you submit after March 6th, then you will get courses that are sort of left unfulfilled from other folks. If you have problems, you can email support@slu.org or you can call 269-2150 for help. All right. So at this point, what I'm going to do is change screens. And once you have logged in, you'll click on class registration there on the left. And that class registration, once you click it, will take you to a screen that looks like this. Across the top, you have English, Human Geography, Algebra 1, Biology, and Theology pre-selected for you. So everybody will take those courses. Everyone is automatically enrolled in Algebra 1. Then, if based on the results of your placement test, your son gets moved to accelerated Algebra 1 or freshman geometry, we will handle that registration afterward. No need for you to change anything. So you'll notice in the upper right-hand corner, this green check is already checked. There's nothing for you to do in the grade 9 core bucket. As we move down the screen, now we have some choices to make. So you'll notice modern or classical language, first choice. When you click on the little pencil over here on the side, that pops up the various choices for your first choice language. Notice this red exclamation point means that you have to make a choice. So let's say I choose Arabic. I then press OK. If you're on only a cell phone, you might have to swipe right and left in order to see that OK button or this edit and the red exclamation point. So once you've made your first choice, then you have to tell me what your second choice is. So maybe you select your second choice as Chinese. Notice once you make your choices, the tiles appear and that red exclamation point becomes a green check mark. I make my third choice of language. Maybe it's French. And now I have submitted my requests. We always try to get students into their first choice languages, but of course we are not always able to do so. So give special consideration, like Ms. Toussaint said, to what your second choice is. So once you've selected your 3 modern or classical languages, Then we move on to selecting your fine arts first choice. So you have three choices. By selecting fundamentals of band, what you're telling us is your son wants to be in the band. You don't have to worry about which band yet. Again, you're just signaling by selecting fundamentals of band. We know that your son's first choice is to be in one of the bands or orchestras, and all of that gets handled by Mr. Pottinger later on. So I'm going to not choose band since most students obviously don't. So let's say your first choice is Survey of Performing Arts. So you select there, the tile appears. Second choice, let's say, is Survey of Visual Arts, and there we have it. So at this point, you've selected all of your main six classes, and now we got to talk about that seventh slot. Again, the most common thing to do here is to click on our edit button, select computer programming, health, and SLU 101. That is the most common path that students will take with those three courses during summer school. So when you select that, we get these three tiles to appear and everything's ready to go. Now, let's say that your son was recommended for math prep. You can't take all four courses. The day is not long enough. So then you would unselect computer programming and just select health, math, and SLU 101. All right. Now, it's also possible that you're not going to be able to do summer school at all. If that's the case, then you notice this is already a green check. You don't have to make any selections here. Just leave it blank and skip it if your son is not going to take any summer courses. Instead, you'll go on and then indicate that you need to take computer programming, health, and SLU 101 during the school year. So if you're not doing summer school, what we see is summer school courses are skipped. And then those three courses, computer programming, health, and SLU 101, are selected during the school year. If you are taking these three courses during the school year, then there's no room for any other electives. So you would leave that blank. It is very rare, but technically possible, that students might want to take classes before school. These are bands and oral communications, an extra fine arts class. I don't know that we've ever had a freshman take oral comm, but it's possible. So you could select that if you wanted to do extra classes before school started. And likewise, we offer after school dance. Again, this is usually for the students that are going to be in the musical. You can do that for one or both semesters. Again, very unusual. The vast majority of students will not do that. So again, I'm going to go back and change to the other to a possibility for students. So let's say you're going to do summer school. So at that point, we uncheck those other classes because you've already taken them in the summer. You don't have to take them again during the school year. Now you have that slot open where you could ask to take another course. So here you see some of the other courses that students can sign up for. Notice that there is a second page. That's where PE is. But students can opt into extra courses. So those of you who are stringed instruments, you can play with chamber orchestra. Mr. Pottinger will give you some information if you want to tell us more about concert band or chamber orchestra. But again, when it comes to the bands that you're auditioning for, you don't have to worry about that. For our visual art students, you have two additional classes that you can take, 2D design and drawing one. For our performing arts students, after you take Survey of Performing Arts, you can sign up for an extra class in acting fundamentals or dance one, and you can take that during the school day. The rest are our bands. And then you can take a quarter of yoga or a quarter of PE if you'd like to knock out a PE requirement. Again, you don't have to do any of all of that, but you could if you wanted to. So what I've shown here is the three most popular summer school choices, and then your first and second choice of fine arts, and your first three choices of language.
Dr. Foy, I have one question that's come up last week and throughout the week a few times is that question again about that summer math prep class. I just want to
Yep.
reiterate what Dr. Foy said. That is the only reason to take the summer placement test is if you want to test out of Algebra 1. You do not need it to our Algebra 1 is at a high level at SLU. The second thing is you're only in that summer math prep class if or recommended for that if you received an email from Dr. Foy. If you did not receive an email specifically recommending you, you are not recommended for that math prep class.
That's right. It goes without saying, or it doesn't go without saying. It is worth saying that the only reason to take either of the placement tests, either in language or in math, is if you desire to move ahead into language two or an advanced math class. All right. So again, since I'm kind of running this, please don't text or don't go directly to me in the chat. Please talk to Mr. Kurt. Any placement test information would go to Ms. Toussaint or Ms. Lyons. Mr. Kurt and Ms. Schuler will then funnel any questions back to me. So once you are finished, scroll down to the bottom and there will be, your screens are a little bit different. There will be a blue submit button. Once you press submit, then you will get a screen that looks similar to this. So this screen shows what all of your choices are. Okay. It doesn't specifically call out whether, SLU 101 is during the summer or during the school year. That doesn't matter. But it'll show you what you have asked for. 7 credits means that you're taking all of the credits that you're supposed to take. If you're taking more than that, it means that you are definitely doing summer school and then doing something in addition. If you're taking less, then we're going to be in touch with you about adding some other classes. So this is the screen that after you press submit, you'll see this screen. If you see this screen, then that means that you have done everything you need to do, and the system has recorded those requests. Anytime between now and the 6th, you can go back into the portal and change your mind. You can switch your language preferences, or, if you find out that you have a summer school conflict and you have to change, you can always go back in and do that anytime up until March 6th. If after March 6th something changes, that may influence your ability to get your first or second choice. But it's important that you let us know. You won't be able to change it any longer. We'll change it for you. So just kind of email me or email Mrs. Schuler, and we'll get all of that taken care of for you. All right. At this point, we're now going to talk about band and orchestra. So, in order to do so, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll notice a menu bar when you scroll over it, and breakout rooms will be one of your choices. When you click on breakout rooms, you should have the opportunity to join room one. Room one is the band room, and that is where Mr. Pottinger will be waiting. Mr. Kurt, do we have Mr. Pottinger? Have we seen him come through?
Yes, he's there. He should be on the participant list.
Okay. So if you are ready to go over to the band room, you are excused to join that breakout room. And then Mr. Kurt will take it, or I'm sorry, Mr. Pottinger will take it away. And when you have all your questions answered, you can just leave. You can leave the Zoom. Everybody else, if you need to stick around and ask some additional questions, you may do so. Or if you've pressed submit and you're happy and ready to go, then you are also welcome to leave the Zoom and go on about your way. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time.